You talked about the laws that are already on the books and the fact that the federal government has a poor record of enforcing current laws, and I fail to see how passing additional laws that the Department of Justice will not enforce is going to make America any safer. But let me just ask you to react briefly to these statistics. From 2007 to 2011, the Department of Justice has charged 13% fewer total firearms cases. In each of the years during that span, the current administration has brought fewer firearms prosecutions than the year before. In January 2011, only 484 new firearm prosecutions were initiated by the Department of Justice, the fewest number of prosecutions in 10 years. As far as background check prosecutions from 2006 to 2010, the number of investigations for unlawful possession decreased 26%. During the same period, 77% fewer NICS denials were referred by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms for prosecution. Federal prosecutors declined 82% more cases over the same period. In 2010, out of the 76,125 denied background checks the FBI referred to the ATF, a verdict or plea was reached in just 13 cases. Would you give us your reaction to that record?
I think it's tragic, Senator. I mean, the fact is, in the shadow of this Capitol, right under everyone's noses in this building, right now, there are drug dealers out in the street with guns violating federal law, illegal. There's all kinds of drugs and cocaine being sold. By God, gangs are trafficking 13-year-old girls, and it goes on day after day after day. What we've got to do is interdict these people, get them off the street before they get to the next crime scene. I mean, and get in the real world in terms of checks. I mean, the fact is, NRA has been trying for 20-some years. Senator Schumer and I went back and forth on Face the Nation, where I asked him if he'd help get those adjudicated mentally incompetent into the system. 20 years ago, he said yes, and they're still not in the system. And my point is, even if you turn up someone on an instant check that's a mentally ill person or a felon, as long as you let them go, you're not keeping them from getting a gun, and you're not preventing them from getting to their next crime scene. I mean, we got get in the real world of this discussion. The problem with gun laws is criminals don't cooperate with them. The mentally ill don't cooperate with them. So you've got to interdict, incarcerate, get in treatment, and do things that matter. And then you've got to put police officers in schools, armed security in schools. But let's do the things that work. Let's get serious about this. I mean, this discussion, I mean, I sit here and listen to it, and my reaction is how little it has to do with making the country and our kids safe, and how much it has to do with this decade-long or two-decade-long gun ban agenda that we don't enforce the laws even when they're on the books. The Attorney General of the United States, Attorney General Eric Holder, during the Richmond program, called it a cookie-cutter approach to solving crime that, you know, he really didn't have a lot of enthusiasm about. I remember Senator Sessions held a hearing, and the Department of Justice testified, well, a drug dealer with a gun is a guppy, and we can't really concentrate on guppies. Those guppies are what is ruining neighborhoods, destroying lives, and killing people, and we've got to confront their behavior, take them off the street, because they don't obey by all the laws that we have right now. We got to get in the real world on what works and what doesn't work. My problem with background checks is you're never going to get criminals to go through universal background checks. I mean, they're all the law-abiding people. You'll create an enormous federal bureaucracy, unfunded, hitting all the little people in the country. Will have to go through it, pay the fees, pay the taxes. We don't even prosecute anybody right now that goes through the system we have. So we're going to make all those law-abiding people go through the system, and then we aren't going to prosecute any of the bad guys if they do catch one. And none of it makes any sense in the real world. We have 80,000 police families in the NRA. We care about safety. We support what works.
I'm trying to be fair to everybody here, and certainly you're going to have a lot more chance to speak. Senator Durbin,
Mr. LaPierre, that's the point. The criminals won't go to purchase the guns because there'll be a background check. We'll stop them from the original purchase. You missed that point completely. And
Senator,
I think it's basic.
Senator, I think you missed it.
Let there be order.
I think you're missing it. If you don't prosecute, you're not stopping them.
I'll give you an
LaPierre,
opportunity.
please wait, everybody, for a moment.
I'll
As I
give you
said
an
earlier, there will be order in the committee room. Senator Durbin, and then
I'm going to give you a chance. I'm going to ask a question here of some of the panelists. Mr. LaPierre, I run into some of your members in Illinois, and here's what they tell me. Senator, you don't get the Second Amendment. Your NRA members say you just don't get it. It's not just about hunting. It's not just about sports. It's not just about shooting targets. It's not just about defending ourselves from criminals, as Ms. Trotter testified. We need the firepower and the ability to protect ourselves from our government. From our government. From the police if they knock on our doors and we need to fight back. Do you agree with that point of view?
Senator, I think without any doubt, if you look at why our founding fathers put it there, they had lived under the tyranny of King George, and they wanted to make sure that these free people in this new country would never be subjugated again and have to live under tyranny. I also think, though, that what people all over the country fear today is being abandoned by their government. If a tornado hits, if a hurricane hits, if a riot occurs, that they're going to be out there alone, and the only way they're going to protect themselves in the cold, in the dark, when they're vulnerable, is with a firearm. And I think that indicates how relevant and essential the Second Amendment is in today's society to fundamental human survival.